إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to be continuing the lessons of the kitab Nukhbatul Fikr في مصطلح أهل الأثر by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala. And in the previous lesson we finished the discussion around the subject of al-ahad, and we looked into mashhur, aziz and gharib. And inshallah ta'ala today we will start with the conditions of al-qabul wal-rad, accepting hadith and rejecting hadith. But before all of that, as always, what do? A bit of a revision. And since the brother asked me that, and he specifically said I didn't prepare, I'm going to ask him first. Abdul Wali. You dug your own hole, huh? So question number 1, which is, what are the 3 types of ahadith al-ahad? Ahsan, good, very easy. Another one? Okay. Mashhur is 2 types. What are the 2 types of mashhur? Mashhur. Good. Mashhur lughawi and mashhur istilahi. Mashhur lughawi means what? Lughawi, yeah. Well known. Meaning a hadith that's very famous. For example, إنما الأعمال بالنيات, حديث جبريل. These are famous ahadith. So they're called mashhur lughatan. Mashhur istilahan is what? More than 2 or 3 plus. Good. So more than 2 or 3 plus, that is mashhur istilahi. Then we have aziz. What are the 2 meanings of aziz, ghazi in the Arabic language? Good. Rare and little. Qawi and shadid, strong. Which one is the stronger one? Qawi and shadid. Good. And in the istilahi definition, what's aziz? When it's 2, that is aziz. Good. Last question. Abdul Rahim, gharib. What is gharib in the Arabic language?
Gharib is someone that is unique and far away from their homeland.
Hasan, the one that is far away from his watani, from his homeland. Good. And in the Sharia, istilahan, what does it mean, gharib?
2 types.
Good.
For gharib mutlaq is the asl of the sanad starts off as 1.
Yes.
And nisbi is when you look at a specific person, their sanad can be gharib.
Hasan, very good. Do you understand the question? Yeah. Okay, Jamil. So this is gharib. And gharib generally is what? When one narrates it from one, this is called a gharib. And this is also called fard. Fard al bidayah. Jamil. Let's carry on, inshallah. There's one more point we forgot to mention actually, which is in the issue of mashhur. He says, وَهُوَ مَشْهُورٌ. And then وَهُوَ الْمُسْتَفِيدُ عَلَى رَأْيٍ. There's another name for the word mashhur, or hadith that is mashhur. It's called a hadith that is mustafid with a dad, and it's written, it's in the matan. وَهُوَ الْمُسْتَفِيضُ عَلَى رَأْيٍ. Is there a difference between the hadith that is mashhur and mustafid? There are 2 opinions. The first opinion is mashhur is mustafid and mustafid is mashhur. They're the same. The first opinion is they're exactly the same thing. Synonymous. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. It's the same thing. Mashhur and mustafid. The second opinion, they say no, there is a difference between a hadith mashhur and a hadith mustafid. What's the difference then? They say mashhur is, or mustafid is different than mashhur. Mashhur, we said, is what? More than 2 or 3 plus, right? So they say mustafid has to be 3 plus in every single tabaqa. For it to be called mustafid. So if every single tabaqa is 3 plus, 3 plus, 3 plus, 3 plus, 3 plus, 3 plus, all the way from beginning to end, this would be called mustafid. But if there's 3 plus in a certain tabaqa, and then there's 10, 11, 14 different tabaqat, this is called mashhur, not mustafid. Because it's not 3 plus in every single tabaqa, meaning 3 plus, as in 3, not anything higher. Yeah, as long as it hasn't hit tawatur, yeah. But the amount is similar in every tabaqa. The amount has to be similar in every tabaqa. So as long as it's in the range of mashhur, not to the level of mutawatir, but the same in every tabaqa, that is mustafid. And the third opinion says the opposite. That is mashhur, and mustafid is the opposite. So mashhur becomes mustafid, and mustafid becomes mashhur. Meaning, if you have exactly the same number, let's say 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, according to the second opinion, that is called mustafid. According to the third opinion, that is called mashhur. So everybody understand? And again, it makes not much of a difference. The word mustafid is a lot of the times used by the scholars of the ahnaf, and specifically used in usul al-fiqh, not even used in mustalah al-hadith. In any case, he just mentions to you an opinion. So Ibn Hajar follows which opinion of mashhur and mustafid? The first one, because he says mashhur wa huwa al-mustafid ala ra'yin, and it's the opinion is exactly the same as mashhur. Mustafid and mashhur are the same. Jamil. Let's carry on with today's lesson, inshallah ta'ala. We'll speak about Sahih and Hasan. Before that, did anybody do the homework? Huh? Who remembers there was homework to do? Okay, what was the homework? Yes. What was the sanad and what type of qaraba was it? What's the sanad? Abu Hurairah? Huh? Abu Zur'a, okay, yes. Umara ibn Khattab, yes. Hubayb. And then it intashar. So it's at the beginning of the chain from the side of who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is this called? Gharib mutlaq. This is gharib mutlaq. Jamil. تفضل أخي.
أحسن الله إليك. اللهم اغفر لنا ولشيخنا وللحاضرين والسامعين والمسلمين أجمعين. قال المصنف رحمه الله: وخبر الآحاد بنقل عدل تام الضبط متصل السند غير معلل ولا شاذ هو الصحيح بذاته.
Now, so the author now starts to say وخبر الآحاد. We're still discussing خبر الآحاد. Why is he discussing خبر الآحاد? Because mutawatir is not in the scope of discussion. Mutawatir is accepted. We don't need to look at whether we accept it or reject it. It's accepted anyways. So خبر الآحاد, every other type of hadith, there are conditions for it to be accepted and called sahih. So write it down. There are 5 conditions of a hadith called hadith sahih. Or this hadith is sahih or authentic. There are 5 conditions it has to satisfy. Number 1, عدالة الرواة. عدالة الرواة. The reliability of the narrators. عدالة الرواة. Number 2, ضبط الرواة. ضبط الرواة. The precision of memory of the narrators. ضبط الرواة. Number 3, اتصال السند. اتصال السند. A connected chain of narration. A connected chain of narration. Number 4, السلامة من الشذوذ. Being free from shudud. Just write shudud as it is. Don't translate it. Being free from shudud. And number 5, السلامة من العلة القادحة. Being free from a hidden defect. Being free from a hidden defect. علة القادحة. So being free from a hidden defect that affects the chain. قادحة means it actually affects the chain. These are the 5 conditions of a hadith that is sahih. So anytime you hear this hadith is sahih, it means it's satisfied these 5 conditions. So let's take them one by one, and again, all of this has a lot more detail, so we will not go into too much detail, but we'll give you an overview. The first one is عدالة الرواة. The first thing that the scholars of hadith check when they want to make sure this hadith is sahih, authentic, is the adala. Adala is two things. Number one, at-taqwa wal-muru'ah. At-taqwa wal-muru'ah. At-taqwa means the person needs to be staying away from all of the prohibitions or the prohibitions of Allah. And number two, following the commands of Allah. This is at-taqwa. Again, when we define at-taqwa, there's many definitions even in the Sharia. One of them is what? أن تجعل بينك وبين عذاب الله وقاية بفعل الأوامر واجتناب النواهي. You place between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment a barrier. How? By doing acts of obedience and staying away from acts of disobedience. So by doing acts of obedience and staying away from acts of obedience, you have what? Taqwa. And taqwa falls under where? Adala, reliability. The second thing that falls under adala is al-muru'ah. Al-muru'ah. And it is for a person not to oppose the norms of the people. For a person not to oppose the norms of the people. And this is called al-muru'ah. And some say mannerisms, or you can say the customs or the mannerisms of your society. The mannerisms of your society. To not oppose them. So a person to have reliability needs to do what? Have taqwa and muru'ah. Taqwa is like things like staying away from major sins. If a person falls into major sins, his adala is affected. Therefore his hadith is not taken. If a person, for example, fornicates and does not repent, or drinks alcohol, is not known to be drinking alcohol, the scholars of hadith do not take his hadith. Or for example, if a person is continuous in the minor sins, the scholars of hadith are known not to take his hadith. Or for example, if a person opposes the norms of a certain culture. And again, the muru'ah differs from country and country, city to city, place to place. Example, back in the times of the scholars of hadith, eating and drinking in the streets was seen as bad mannerisms. Bad. Today, are you allowed or is it okay to eat and drink whilst you're walking in the streets? It's seen as normal. Back in the days, it was seen as bad. So if a person was known to eat in the streets or drink in the streets, his hadith is not taken. Why? His muru'ah falls down, therefore his adala falls down, and therefore his hadith is not taken. And this differs from place to place. Example, what's something that we have here that is if somebody did it, it would be khawarib al-muru'ah. But not in a different country. I'll give you an example. Perhaps in this country, maybe wearing a pink thobe would be okay, right? Or not? No? It would be okay, yeah? Dark pink, let's say dark pink. It would be okay, right? Nobody would look at you twice in this country, in the UK. But maybe in Saudi Arabia, if you wore that, you'd be looked really awkwardly. It's not haram, but it's just not the norms. That's khawarib al-muru'ah. If you did it there, a muhaddith will not take hadith from you. Make sense? Perhaps, yes. It depends again in which country, in which place. And in the haram, for example. For example, sitting in a lesson of knowledge and with your head not covered. Khawarib al-muru'ah or not? There. Yeah, perhaps here, maybe not so much. So it differs. Okay? So from place to place, what is seen as mannerisms or not differs. Yes, in a way. It's basically the urf. But muru'ah is how you uphold the urf. That's called muru'ah. Your upholding of the urf is called muru'ah. So, this is khawarib al-muru'ah. Khawarib means things that poke hole into your muru'ah. So if a person does not have muru'ah or taqwa, then what happens? His adala falls down. That's number one. Number two is what? ضبط الرواة. ضبط is what? Memorization, precision in your memory. How well you've memorized the hadith. And the scholars, they go to great extent to make sure a person has memorized. And the ضبط is of two types. ضبط is of two types. ضبط السطور وضبط الصدور. The ضبط of sutur. The memorization of books. And also the memorization of the chest. These are the two types of memorization. Certain scholars, they memorize in the chest all of the ahadith. You come to them and they will recite it from memory, all of it. With the asanid, with everything. Certain scholars of hadith, no. They can do that, but they would prefer to read off their book. And each one has conditions. Meaning, a person who reads from his memory, then he has to not make any mistakes. And if he makes mistakes, his mistakes in comparison to the things that he gets right needs to be very little. Needs to be very little. And those who memorized in the chest were the likes of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, Al-Imam al-Bukhari, Al-Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in. These are scholars who memorized and the memory was in the chest. And an example that happened with Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, when he went to Baghdad, the city of Baghdad, they heard of this great man, Hafiz called Bukhari. He entered the city of Baghdad. So they wanted to test Imam al-Bukhari's memory. So they lined up 10 different people. And each of these 10 people, they gave them 10 ahadith. But the sanad and the matan of the 10 hadith was switched around. So the matan was different hadith, so they switched them around. So the sanad, meaning the chain of narration, is correct, but it applies to a different hadith. And they proposed it to Bukhari. So they said, Bukhari, we have 10 people that have a hadith. They're going to read it. Make sure you, can you tell us if you've heard of these ahadith, if they're authentic or not? So first one read his 10. Bukhari said, La a'rifuhu. I don't know 10 times. Second person read the 10 hadith. He said, I don't know. You can imagine the people of Baghdad heard of this man Bukhari. And now he's saying, I don't know to these ahadith. And they look down upon him in their hearts. And then the third and the fourth and the fifth, 10 of them. So how many ahadith were presented to him? 100 ahadith. When he finished all of them, he said, I don't know. Every single one. But then he said, wait. The hadith, the first sanad of yours, and the fifth matan of yours, they go together. Your fifth one and your fourth one goes together. He corrected every single one of the chains from memory. He said, your third one, your fourth one, this one brings you here, that one brings it there. And that way you have authentic hadith. So his memory was where? In his chest. His memory was in his chest. There are likes of other scholars whose memorization is in the books. Who knows whose memorization is in the books? Which scholar? He has hadith memorized in his chest, but he prefers to read off from his book. Who? Yeah, I forgot his name, but when he was a child. There's another Imam. I'll give you a hint for the 4 Imams. Imam Malik. Imam Malik was known to be a person who would have people read from his book, his Muwatta. And it would be his memorization would be from the book, not from his chest. Even though he would memorize from the chest. But generally it was from the books. So there were scholars like this and there were scholars like that. Is one better than the other? Is one better than the other? Yes?
The person who uses their books are then much from the person who has it.
What if the person loses his memory as well? Same thing, right? It's likely, because having to memorize is harder. If I memorize something and I need to recall it, I may make mistakes, but if the book is in front of me, I may not make mistakes because it's right there. Which one's better? That's for Ibrahim.
Let's say the chest.
Chest. Why?
Because if he doesn't have his books with him, then he can still give a hadith.
Good point. At the end of the day, when it comes to the hadith, it doesn't make a difference. Whether you narrate it from your chest or from your book, as long as you've narrated it correctly, that's all that matters. Some may argue chest is better because of the reasons you mentioned, and also the hadith of the Prophet, نَضَّرَ اللَّهُ امْرَأً, may Allah brighten the face of a person who memorized my hadith and then he conveys it, even though hadith is weak itself. Ala kullin, there is arguments otherwise. But again, with regards to the fact that whether you narrate it from the book or your memory, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference as long as you do it correctly. When it comes to when it comes to the books, then there are conditions. You need to be safeguarding your book of hadith. You need to know if the book somebody changes a letter or a dot, you need to be aware of it. It's not that I have a book and I come and open it and read it. And if somebody's tampered with my hadith and I read it wrong, no. It has to be correctly read, safeguarded. Somebody makes an error or changes it or steals my book, I know everything. I need to have full knowledge of my book when I narrate the hadith. But generally, these are the two types of memorization, in the chest and in the books. So that's number 2. Number 3 is what? Ittisal sanad, a connected chain of narration. That the person who you've conveyed the hadith to has heard it from you directly. And this is where a concept comes, which is sigha al-ada. Sigha al-ada is what comes here. When a hadith is narrated, what are the considered and acceptable ways of narrating hadith to a student? Meaning, if I'm a teacher of hadith and I want to narrate hadith to you guys, what's the best way for me to pass down this hadith? Huh? Orally. But how? Me reading it or somebody reading it in my presence? Or you guys reading it to me? I read it with my own sanad. And the scholars they differ. All of them are acceptable. So it will come to, there are 7 ways of narrating hadith. 7 different sigh al-ada. We'll come to it later in the book. From it is the teacher reads. This is called sama', when the teacher reads. When the student reads on the teacher, this is called ard, you presenting the hadith to me. And then we also have what is called as wijada. I die after a long life of obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I leave some books behind. The masjid brings it in the masjid, you brothers read it, and you find some ahadith with my asanid in it. You found the book, it's called wijada. Is it considered as hadith you can take? What if I say, brothers, I give you ijaza of all my hadith? Al-ijaza, is it allowed? What if I don't read the hadith, you don't read the hadith, I have a book of hadith, and I hand it over to one of you, and I said, this is my book of hadith. And it's got all my asanid, here you go. Are you then allowed to take this book and narrate it? This is called munawala, passing the book to a student. Okay? All of this will come to, again, al-munawala. Just me passing will not allow you to narrate the hadith. It's not called muttasil. It won't be muttasil. Unless I give you an ijaza with it. Unless I say, akhi, take the book, وَأُجِيزُكَ فِيهِ, and I give you ijaza, then it's acceptable. Likewise, wijada. They say wijada has conditions for it to be acceptable. Like we see in the books of Imam Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the son of Imam Ahmad, Abdullah, he says, وَجَدْتُ بِخَطِّ أَبِي, I found in the handwriting of my father. He found. His father never gave him permission to narrate it, but he found it. Is it allowed? Again, we'll go through that discussion. But the point is, there are 7 ways of transferring hadith from a teacher to a student. Some of them are accepted and some of them are not accepted. What are these ways called? Siyagh al-ada. Siyagh al-ada. But there are some that are agreed upon, like sama' and ard. They're agreed upon. That's number 3. Number 4 is as-salamatu min ash-shudud, being free from shudud. The hadith being shadh. Being free from what is called shudud, shadh. You can translate it as opposition. As opposition. Meaning a hadith that is sahih should have no opposition. Okay? What do I mean? Let's take a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like the hadith of إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. What's the sanad? Umar ibn Khattab, Alqam ibn Qas al-Laythi, then Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi, and then You have to memorize it, right? Muhaddithin now. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, and then Jazakallah khair. And then? Huh? After Yahya many, but let's say Bukhari Sanad. Huh? You need to know from Bukhari, right? So take it down. From Bukhari, it was narrated by his teacher Abdullah ibn Zubayr al-Humaydi. Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr. So the hadith of إنما الأعمال بالنيات, this is the sanad for it. Number 1, Bukhari. Number 2 is, this is going from the down to the top, yeah? Bukhari, and then Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Then Sufyan. With Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Sufyan ibn Uyayna. From Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, and then the rest of it you know. Yahya ibn Sa'id al-Ansari, and then Muhammad ibn Ibrahim al-Taymi, and then Alqama ibn Waqas al-Laythi, and then Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. That's the sanad. Now, what is shadh? If we have that sanad in front of us, then comes somebody else who opposes the hadith and says the hadith is not إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, it's إِنَّمَا النِّيَّاتُ بِالْأَعْمَالِ. And the person who brings you this hadith is another person in the sanad, and he's reliable. Let's say instead of Sufyan ibn Uyayna, it's somebody else, reliable. Let's say it's Muhammad ibn Sirin, and he's reliable. And he has more, hypothetically, he has more memory than Sufyan ibn Uyayna. This is called shudud. So in a hadith that is sahih, there should be no shudud, no opposition. And shudud happens in 2 ways. Opposition happens in 2 ways. Either you're opposed by someone who has better memory than you. Either you're opposed by somebody who has better memory than you. Or you're opposed by people with equal memory as you, but they are greater in number than you. So you're 1, and you say, the Prophet said X. Then comes 10 people who oppose you with equal memorization, but they say the Prophet said Y. Said something exactly the opposite. So this is called shudud. Either you're opposed by 1 person with more memory, or by several people at the same memorization level as you. Both of them is called shudud. Clear? No, we'll come to this inshallah. But again, there's different levels of memory. There's memory that is called tamul dabt, complete memory, which is when the majority of your hadith, somebody came and said, read it to me, and you read it to them, and majority of the times you got it correct. And again, you won't be surprised because Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala and Ibn Hatim al-Razi, they revised 1,000,000 ahadith one day together. 1 million sitting together from Dhuhr, from Fajr till Dhuhr. So they sit and revise. So they know whose memory is good and whose memory is bad. To an extent, they even know this person, he had good memory until this incident happened in his life. He lost his mother, then his memory became weak. And this one, he had his book and he recites and reads from his book, but then his book got lost, and then his reading got weak. You know everything. Every detail they know. So, where was I? Shudud, now, tafadhal.
So if they're opposed by many people with less memory than them?
No. It has to be same memory as him. And if it's less than him, some scholars do consider it to be shudud. Okay, but it's not the same. Because if it's less memory than him, then no, it doesn't make a difference. For example, if you have a man like Imam Malik, how is Imam Malik's memorization? As Imam Shafi'i said, إِذَا ذُكْرَ مَالِك فَمَالِكٌ النَّجْمِ. If Malik is mentioned, he's the star. His memorization is the pinnacle memorization. Then comes here Umayr and Uzair, and they say what? وَثَالِثٌ لَيْسَ فِيهِ خَيْرٌ. And then he says, and he has memorization is weak. He doesn't even memorize his own name, and he forgets his own name. And there's 10 of them. And they oppose Malik. We're going to weaken Malik from them. No. So it has to be equal level than him. So that's the first meaning of the word shad, which is what? مخالفة الثقة بمن هو أوثق منه. Is a thiqa, who is a person who's reliable in his memory, is opposed from somebody who's more reliable. Okay? Let's give you an example. If I have 55% good memory, and then Abdul Wali, he has 75% good memory. I said the Prophet said something. He says the Prophet says something else. Who is going to be taken? Him. Why? Good. His one is called what? Mahfuz. His hadith is called Mahfuz. My hadith is called Shad. Does that make sense? Now, if I'm opposed by somebody weaker than me, so my memorization is, how much did I say? 55. Then comes another brother. His memory is 25% good. He's weaker than me and he comes and opposes me in what I said. And then my hadith is called what? Mahfuz. His hadith is called Munkar. Because he is weaker than me trying to oppose somebody stronger. Okay, so two things. If somebody who's good memory, let's say 80% memorization, is opposed by somebody stronger than him, the stronger one is called what? Mahfuz. The weaker one? Shad. If I have 70% memory and then somebody weaker than me, 5% memory opposes the 50%. The 5% is called what? Munkarul hadith, and this one is called Mahfuz. Okay? So it's subjective and respective. Huh? Ma'ruf? No. Munkar. Mahfuz, yeah. Some say ma'ruf in the second case, yeah. But mahfuz, inshallah. Okay, just to keep it simple. لمن هو أوثق منه. A thiqa being opposed by somebody more thiqa. Or بجماعة منهم. Or by a group of them. That's the first meaning of a thiqa. It wouldn't be considered. I mean, had the imams themselves or the narrators of them?
The Imam knows a hadith.
Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of people are
But how they the same level as the imam or less? No, it doesn't count. It has to be same level for it to be shad. Shad, same level or more. Yeah. That was the same question as Ibrahim. Yeah.
What if it's the
Same
same
memory? Yeah, then that would be shudud. Because that's a bigger group than that one person. So from this you understand the hadith in Bukhari. Every single hadith in Bukhari mentioned there was never an opposition to that hadith by anybody else more reliable than them. Make sense? Now, there's a second meaning of the word shudud. It is تفرد من لا يحتمل تفرده. It is تفرد من لا يحتمل تفرده. It is when somebody is not being opposed by anybody. He's not being opposed by, there's no opposition happening. He's by himself. And he's not capable of being by himself. For some reason or another, I don't want to go into the details. تفرد من لم يحتمل أو يحتمل تفرده. Somebody who narrates a hadith and he's not opposed by anybody. So he says the Prophet ﷺ said X, Y, and Z. And nobody opposed him. There's nobody better in memory who opposed him. Nobody said he's weak. He has good memory himself. He's adil, he's reliable, everything. Connected chain. But him by himself, it's not. It looks a bit awkward. There's something wrong there. That is also called shad. There's another meaning of shad. Okay? And then what's the fifth condition? السلامة من العلة القادحة. Free from a hidden defect that affects the hadith. Now, if we take, and which of the meanings of shudud here is correct? Which of the two meanings of shudud here is correct? And by the way, this concept of shudud, the scholars of hadith, they've gone back and forth regarding it. There's more than one meaning of the word shad that they bring. These are the two most common ones. Which one is more correct? So when we say hadith is sahih, which version of shad, which definition of shad do we say it is what we intend? First one, why? More clear cut. Why not both? We do both. Huh? The correct thing is it would be the second one. It would be the second one. Why? If we say it's the first one, it would be the second one, yes. If we say it's the first one, we effectively have 4 conditions of sahih, not 5. What do I mean by that? If I say shudud means a opposition by somebody else, okay? The correct opinion is the first one, not the second one. Because if I say it is tafarrud man la yuhtamalu tafarruduhu, then that falls under illah, which comes next. In that way, you only have 4 conditions of sahih, not 5. So it's no different than illah. Illah is a hidden defect, right? And tafarrud and somebody being by themselves and they're not capable of being by themselves, it's a form of hidden defect. So if you say that's the meaning, then you just make the conditions 4. There's no 5 conditions. But the scholars distinguishing make it 5. That means the shudud they intend by it is what? The first definition of shudud. The first definition. Ala kullin, there is a lot of back and forth regarding these conditions. We'll take a basic level of it now. Maybe when we go to another bigger book, we'll go into more detail. So that is shudud. Shudud has 2 meanings. What's the first one? Somebody who has more memory opposes you, or somebody with equal memory opposes you, but they are a bigger group. And then the last one is Adam al-illa al-qadiha. Not having a hidden defect that affects the hadith. Not having a hidden defect that affects the hadith. Now, what is a hidden defect? To give you an idea, a hidden defect can be something where a hadith looks very clear and apparent. You're analyzing the chains of, or the conditions of sahih. What's the first one? Adala. Every single narrator is adala, correct, good. Second one is what? Dhabt. All of them have good memory, you've checked it. Number 3, connection. Ittisal, all of them are connected. Number 4, no shudud, you've checked it. In the apparent, it looks okay. ظاهرها الصحة. And the apparent looks good, but there's a hidden problem there, which is not really there unless you really examine it. Then you find out, oh subhanallah, there's a big problem here. That's called a illah. And qadiha means it affects the hadith. I'll give you an example. If I were a muhaddith and I come here every single day, give you 10 hadith and narrate it with my chain back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every day, new hadith. One day, let's say, Zahid was absent. Okay? And he didn't come. And everybody went back, and he came the next day. He took the hadith from Daniel. He took it from somebody else. Let's say yesterday I narrated it, he was absent. Today he came, he asked Daniel, what did the teacher narrate yesterday? He took it from him. Good? So he has the hadith coming back to me, but through him. In the hadith he says, An Yasir. From Yasir. Now, from Yasir, is it correct? Yes. From Yasir means it's from me, the hadith is from me. But it's not directly from me. But it gives off the impression that it is from me. Why? Because for the rest of the 364 days of the year, he has heard it from me. And he has said, قال ياسر, أو حدثني ياسر, أو عن ياسر. But that one day, what does he say? عن ياسر. From Yasir. It is from me. But it's not from me directly. He heard it from Daniel, but who heard it from me? Because he was absent. Hidden, nobody would know. That hidden defect is what? Is called a illah. Again, there's different forms of illah, but that is a type of illah. It's a tadlis, yeah, it's called a tadlis, yeah. It's a form of tadlis, which is a illah. Okay? So this is a illah. Now, illah can be qadiha and sometimes not be qadiha. Qadiha means it affects the sanad, it makes a difference. If it does not make a difference, it wouldn't make a difference. Example, if you find a hadith and you find everybody to have adala, let's say the first person in the sanad is called Ahmad, or one of the narrators is called Ahmad. He is adil, thiqa, mundabit, he has everything, the sanad is connected, everything. When you examine the hadith closely, you find out this man whose name is Ahmad, he wasn't really Ahmad. His name is Akram. He was not Ahmad, he was Akram. And Akram does not have tam al-dabt. He does not have full memory. He's got average memory. Does it make a difference? Yeah, it does make a difference. So this is the one that we refer to as a illa qadiha. But if Akram came and he's the one who narrated it instead of Ahmad, but Ahmad and Akram have the same level of memory, is there a illa? Yes, it is a illa because it's a hidden defect. But does it affect the hadith? No, because at the end of the day, the hadith through Ahmad or through Akram would still be sahih. So it doesn't make a difference. So that's why we say a illa, you have to put the word qadiha. It's a illa that needs to make a problem in the hadith if it's discovered. If a illa doesn't make a problem, it doesn't matter. Yeah. It depends on how you narrate it. Yeah. So sometimes when we come to this issue, it's called tadlis. And this is when some of them, they say an, to give off the impression that they heard it directly. But they never did. Does that make sense? They would say, no, an qala. Qala, Yasir, I did say it. But I didn't say it and he didn't hear me directly, right? That's the issue. So it can be a problem. It can be a problem. It depends on how he brings it about. We'll come to this issue. This is called the tadlis or the an'ana of a mudallis. Come to it, inshallah, more detail. Question? Okay. So this is which condition? The last condition. And again, Sheikh Nukhbatul ibn Hadi al-Wadi'i has a kitab called Hadith Ma'lula Zahiruha as-Sahha. It's a whole book that he brings all of the hadith that look okay from the apparent, but when you investigate, there's problems in it. How would the scholars of hadith know that there's a hidden defect? Rijal? How? Experience. Just like when you go to a goldsmith, you bring him the gold, and sometimes you don't have to walk into the shop with the gold, and you don't have to take it out. You don't even need to explain anything. Before you even speak, he sees the gold watch, well, not gold watch, or the gold earring of your wife in your pocket, or the necklace in your pocket, or the gold bar in your pocket. He sees it there. As soon as you walk into the shop, he says, fake, go out. How does he know it? Experience, right? So these people, the hadith became what? Meshed in their blood, in their bones, in their veins. So they know a hadith, this is a ilm, it can never be possible. This person, they never met. This person's no. This person, his memory is weak. So they know it through experience in. So who do we go to when it comes to the issue of ilm? Jahabila, the great scholars of hadith, not any person who knows hadith. So this is the 5 conditions of a hadith that is sahih. Let's recap. What's the first one? Adala. Number 2, dabt. And dabt here is tam al-dabt, complete memory, tam. There we will see when it comes to a hadith that is Hasan, the memorization is acceptable even if it's less than complete. Meaning, if it's average memory, it's still acceptable. And it's called Hasan, but it won't be Sahih. So memorization is of different levels. There's something called tam al-dabt, which is what? Complete. Which means majority of the times, if you have memorized 1,000 ahadith, 9,999 ahadith, when you were asked, you got it correct. Or let's say somebody tested you 1,000,000 times. 900,000 times you got it correct. This is called what? Tam al-dabt. But then there is what? Average, fair memorization. You're not really the top level memorizer. You're not the what did they call it? Creme de la creme. You're not the top one. You're just average, a bit more than the average. So you're good. You're a good memorizer. You're a good memorizer. This is called khafif al-dabt. Khafif al-dabt. These narrators who have khafif al-dabt are where? Hasan. Hadith that is Hasan. So that's the second one. The third one, there is connected chain of narration. Number 4, no shudud. Number 5, no illa. This is a hadith that is sahih. Now if you think of it, if you can break down these ahadith, the first of these conditions, the first 3 conditions have something in common, and the last 2 conditions have something in common.
First is the word should have, the last word it should have.
Good. So the first 3 are things that we need to find in order for it to be sahih. The last 2 need to be absent for it to be sahih. So the first 3 is called ijabiyya, or you can say wujudiyya, present or positives. And the last 2 are salbiyya or manfiyya. They're negated or they should be absent. Which one is harder to do? Which of these conditions is harder to analyze and find out? Salbiyya. Why? Huh? Just because there's a illa. Very close. No. There's a reason why the first 3 conditions are easy to find and investigate, and it's easy. The last 2 are a bit harder. No. Close. So basically, if I said to the brothers, Akhi, can you go look for Muhammad in that building? For you to find the presence of Muhammad, it may take you 2 minutes and you come back and say, I found him there. But if I say, go look in that building, look for Muhammad and make sure he's not there, would that take you 2 minutes or more? More. So finding the absence or confirming the absence of something takes more time, more effort, rather than confirming the presence of something. Make sense? For you to confirm, yes, that's present, that's present, that's present, as soon as you find it muttasal, khalas, tick, 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 tick. But for you to make the tick on the absent requires more effort and more time. Does everybody understand? Right? So that's why the salbiyya are harder to determine. Now, so that is a hadith that is sahih.
أحسن الله إليك.
And the author, he says, وَهُوَ الصَّحِيحُ لِذَاتِهِ. And it's a hadith that is sahih لِذَاتِهِ. Now, hadith are different levels. What are the levels of hadith? How many levels of grading of hadith in terms of authenticity of hadith do we have? 3? 2. What's the 2? That's it. No da'if, no hasan, no nothing else. The types of authentication of hadith generally. 3. 4. منكر as well, huh? MashaAllah. موضوع ذيك العادة. جيد. MashaAllah, 6 now. Right. نعم. So Imam al-Iraqi says وأهل هذا الشأن قسموا السنن إلى صحيح وضعيف وحسن. Generally we say there are 3 levels. What are the levels? ضعيف, Hasan, Sahih. ضعيف is what? Weak. Hasan is sound, fair. Sahih is authentic. Generally this is that. But then Sahih has 2 types and Hasan has 2 types. If you look into it in more detail. So then how many do you have? 5. So starting from the strongest level of hadith, it is called Sahihun lidatihi. That's the highest and the strongest level of grading of hadith. Second strongest level is what? Sahihun li ghayrihi. Number 3. Hasanun lidatihi. Number 4. Hasanun li ghayrihi. Number 5. Da'if. And there's nothing below da'if. And some say mawdu', some say munkar, but they're all a type of da'if anyways. All a type of da'if. Okay? So you have how many gradings of hadith? Generally, for a basic level, 3. But if you want to really be precise, how many do you say? 5. Okay? So what's the highest level? Sahihun lidati. So what we mentioned, the 5 conditions, if it's satisfied, it's called Sahihun lidati. Why lidati? Because for itself, that sanad by itself is Sahih. That hadith by itself, in and within itself, is Sahih. We have another level which is called what? Hasan. Before we come to Hasan, read it and then we'll come to Hasan inshallah.
وتتفاوت رتبه بتفاوت هذه الأوصاف ومن ثم قدم صحيح البخاري ثم مسلم ثم شرطهما.
Now, so the author, he says وتفاوت رتبه بتفاوت هذه الأوصاف. The levels of authenticity differs based on how satisfactory they are to these conditions. هذه الأوصاف means هذه الشروط, to these conditions. Which awsaf, how many are there? 5 that they're describing. So the more you satisfy these 5 conditions, the more sahih it is. Is it possible for hadith to be sahih and another hadith to be sahih, but they're not the same level? Possible? لذاتي I'm talking. Yes, if a hadith is sahihun lidati and hadith sahihun lidati, but still not be the same level of strength, but they're still sahihun lidati. Is it possible? No. I'll give you a simple example. You may have somebody in grade 10 students in grade 10. They all satisfy the minimum to be considered in grade 10. But within that grade, those 10 students, they're not equally smart, right? Some may be smarter than others. Likewise, if you have sahih lidati, they've both satisfied the minimum of being considered sahihun lidati, but one may be stronger than the other. No problem, it's possible. It's possible. And for example, if for example hadith is muttasil, and another hadith is muttasil, and everything else is satisfied equally, but one's ittisal is far more stronger than the other. Let's say one's ittisal is agreed upon between the ulama of hadith. This Salim an Nafi an Ibn Umar, agreed upon, la shakka fihi. But then there's another chain which is also connected, but its connection is mukhtalafun fihi, wa rajihu fihi is the ittisal. It's differed upon, but the correct opinion is it is connected. This sahih and this sahih, is it the same? No, of course not. So the way that it satisfies the conditions are different. So therefore, it's possible for you to have 2 ahadith, sahiha, lidatiha, but different levels. Okay? And then he says, وَمِن ثَمَّ قُدِّمَ صَحِيحُ الْبُخَارِي. And as a result, Sahih al-Bukhari is the most authentic book. Now, what is the most authentic book that we have? Bukhari or Muslim? It's actually a khilaf. Some of the Maghrib, the scholars of Al-Maghrib, they prefer it and they say Sahih Muslim is more stronger. But it is Sahih al-Bukhari is stronger than Muslim. Why? Yes, you're right about which shurut.
2 people live in one time. Bukhari is the condition that they have to met, or they have to take knowledge of one another. But Muslim, if they lived in the same time, there was a likelihood that they would have met. They would have taken the hadith, but Bukhari wouldn't.
Good. That's it?
And it's changed the practice of shurut.
Relatively, yeah. Yes, ثلاثيات and Muslim only has رباعيات. So, a number of reasons. Who's the teacher, who's the student? Bukhari is the teacher. Muslim is the student of Bukhari. That's not a reason, by the way. The main reason is, number one, is if you want to summarize it, you say the conditions of Bukhari are stronger. That's it. The conditions of Bukhari are stronger than Imam Muslim's condition. But specifically looking at those conditions, there are specific things. Number one is if you look at the men of Bukhari, the narrators in Bukhari, and you make a comparison between the narrators of Bukhari and the narrators of Imam Muslim Sahih, the Ruwat, the people who've narrated the hadith in them. And you single out the ones that Bukhari has mentioned, but Imam Muslim has not mentioned. And then you single out the ones that Imam Muslim has mentioned, but Bukhari has not mentioned. You find the ones that Imam Bukhari has mentioned, but Imam Muslim hasn't, is 435 men. 435 men are narrators were mentioned in Bukhari, but you cannot find them in Imam Muslim. From them, from these 500 or 435, 80 of them have been spoken against. But the correct opinion are they are good memorizers and they have adala. But they're spoken against. Somebody has attempted to criticize them, and how many of them? 80 of them only. When you look at Muslim, when his narrators that are his single in farada bihi Muslim an al-Bukhari, there are 620, more or less more. And from these 620, 160 have been spoken against. So just looking at statistics and the narrators in Bukhari and Muslim, which narrators are stronger? Bukhari's narrators are more stronger. The people in the chain of Bukhari are more stronger. That's one. Number two,
Can you repeat that part about the narrators in Muslim?
yeah. So narrators in Bukhari, there are 435. So that's the narrators only in Bukhari that Muslim never had. And that's only in Bukhari. So just to give you an understanding, there are certain narrators Bukhari and Muslim share. They have same narrators. We're not talking about the ones they're sharing with one another, because we can't then give priority to him over him. But the ones that are unique for Bukhari, and this narrator is unique for Muslim. The ones unique for Bukhari are 435. From 435, only 80 have been spoken against, even though the correct opinion is they are authentic. Who can do a percentage for it? Huh? Nobody's good in maths, huh? Calculator. 17 and a half. Okay, roughly. MashaAllah. You're a mathematician, huh?
8 times 5, 400.
So how much the percentage? It's too accurate. What's 80?
18.
Huh? 18. MashaAllah, you close 17, huh? 18.3. And Muslim, when he has 620, and 160 of them have been criticized. Huh? 26. Huh? 25.8. So 25.8% of your narrators have been criticized, or 18.3% of your narrators have been criticized. Which one is worse? The higher one, and that's the one of Muslim. Also on top of that, the one of Imam Bukhari that have been criticized, majority of them are his own teachers. Meaning he knows them, and he knows they have good memory. So even the criticism against them is not even valid. It's put to the side. Tfadal, you had a question?
It's spoken against the same as opposed as the Sheikh?
Say again?
It's spoken against the same as opposed.
No. Spoken against just means when it comes to jarh and ta'deel, criticizing and praising the narrators, if there's a criticism against them. Shudud is when there's an opposition. If he says X, he says Y, that's opposition. Right.
You mentioned the 80 from Bukhari, that they were okay. The 160 from Muslim.
They're also okay because it's sahih at the end of the day.
Why did
It's just spoken against.
But if the reality is different to what it's
So we're just now comparing which one is more sahih. That's the whole comparison. We're not comparing whether he's sahih or da'if. We're saying, oh, sahih, okay. Which one is more sahih than the other one? This one is more because his narrators are less criticized, and the ones who are criticized are his own teachers. The scholars of hadith. So the huffaz of hadith are those who criticize. The experts of hadith who criticize and say he's weak, he's not. So their opinion is taken. Like for example, Yahya ibn Ma'in. Yahya ibn Ma'in, they say if he shook somebody's hand, that's praise. If he said salam to you, he said salam alaikum, that man would be Allahu Akbar. I said salam to Yahya ibn Ma'in. That means my hadith is Zoom. Allah, He praises me. Like that's how much praise He will see. So there are scholars of hadith. Now, also another reason is these narrators that are criticized that we mentioned. For Bukhari, he brings them in his shawahid, which is not a part of his book. He's using it as a supporting hadith. It's not a part of his book. As opposed to the narrators criticized in Muslim, they're a part of his book, part of his asl. Okay? So this is looking at just the narrators of Bukhari and Muslim and comparing which one is better. So Muslim's narrators are weaker compared to Bukhari's narrators, meaning the rawat in it. That's the first reason. The second reason is also, as the brother mentioned, there is an extra condition that Bukhari places that Imam Muslim doesn't, which is when you have a hadith that is an, which is called ana, from, meaning the example that we gave of our brother when he says an Yasir, from Yasir, Bukhari, he places a condition if somebody uses the word an, and he's known to do this for a ulterior motive, for a reason behind it. You have to prove that me and him met at least once. Whereas Imam Muslim, his condition is as long as me and him lived at the same time, it's enough. So one does conditioning of al-luqi, meeting, Bukhari, and one says al-mu'asara, just living at the same time. So which condition is stronger? To confirm that the narrators actually met, or the narrators lived at the same time? Met. Bukhari conditions them to be met. And this is where there's big khilaf with Ali ibn Madini. In fact, Imam Muslim in his muqaddimah, he brings an ijma' that you don't need for them to be meeting. And he kind of argues against Ali ibn Madini and Bukhari and the likes. In any case, these are the reasons why Bukhari is more stronger than Muslim. If you look at it's shorter, but it just really short enough. It's no reason. Because if it's shorter, it can still be weaker. It doesn't mean it's less likely or it's less possible that there was an error, but no. From the angle of analyzing the hadith, we satisfy the conditions. And there's no condition of having a shorter chain. The condition is what? Ittisal only. Regardless of whether it's 3 or 4, doesn't matter. Okay, last 2 points of hadith al-sahih is the hadith al-sahih are of different levels. What's the strongest sahih? Yes, but in Bukhari or in Muslim, whatever hadith is agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, is that stronger than just Bukhari? Yes. So there are 6 levels that Ibn Hajar he mentions in his Nuzha. Write them down. So the strongest level of Sahih hadith is مَتَّفَقَ عَلَيْهِ الشَّيْخَانِ. Anything agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim. If there's a hadith that is in Bukhari and in Muslim, the same hadith from the same Sahabi, this is the strongest possible hadith you will find in your life. Strongest possible hadith you will find in your life is what? A hadith that is authenticated by Bukhari and Muslim at the same time. Number 2, man farada bihi al-Bukhari. The second one is the one that is only mentioned in Bukhari and not Muslim. And why? We mentioned the reasons. Number 3, man farada bihi Muslim. The one that is only mentioned in Muslim and not Bukhari. That's number 3. Number 4, ما كان على شرطهما معا. Anything that satisfies the condition of Bukhari and Muslim but is not in Bukhari and Muslim. That's number 4. Anything that satisfies the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim and is Sahih but not in Bukhari and Muslim. And Muslim. So it satisfies the condition of both Bukhari and Muslim, and it's not in either Bukhari or Muslim, but it is Sahih. Number 5, anything that is according to the conditions of Bukhari only. And number 6, you guys say? Anything that is in the conditions of Muslim only. And number 7, anything that is sahih but does not satisfy anything we mentioned before. And that is still sahih but not as strong as the ones we mentioned before. Not necessarily.
But it's not found.
Yeah. It's not found, yeah.
What's the condition of that?
So when we say the conditions of Bukhari, is what we mean by it is, for example, Al-Hakim has a Mustadrak on Bukhari and Muslim. When he came to the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim and the hadith of Bukhari and Muslim, and he comes to the same hadith and tries to find it out through a sanad of his own, but still satisfying the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim. So I don't mean by it, because if you think about it, Bukhari and Muslim, what's the difference in the conditions? Luqi, that's the only difference. That's the only difference. But then, like you mentioned, if it's satisfying the conditions of Bukhari, doesn't it automatically satisfy the conditions of Muslim? Why do I mention that? But I said there's Bukhari and Muslim as well, right? So when it comes to the issue of what I mean by satisfying the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim, it's coming to a hadith Bukhari brings you. Don't want to confuse you guys, but Bukhari brings you, and he brings you his own sanad from Bukhari. That's what I mean by it. It's like a mustadrak. Make sense? I don't want to complicate it for you, but so look, certain scholars will come to Bukhari and Muslim, or let's say Muslim, like Abi Awana. Abi Awana, he has a mustakhraj on Sahih Muslim. He came to the book Sahih Muslim, anything that satisfies the condition of Muslim and is from the book of Imam Muslim, he brings you his own sanad from it. But Imam Muslim never brought the hadith. So Imam Muslim has a number of hadith. He says there is a hadith Imam Muslim did not bring in his Sahih. It satisfies the condition of Imam Muslim. It is the hadith of Imam Muslim and it's not in his book. I will bring it to you. So that's what we mean. So it's not just the shurut, it's also the ahadith of Bukhari and Muslim.
Oh, they just didn't write in the book.
Sorry?
They just didn't write in the book.
Yeah. But so when I say shurut, it's not just intended by just the shurut like that. It's the shurut and the hadith of theirs. So it's the speech of the muhaddithin. So when they say shurut, ala shart al-Bukhari, they mean it's in the conditions of Bukhari plus it's a hadith of Bukhari, the asl is al-Bukhari. Make sense?
What's the seventh one?
Seventh one is the one that is sahih, satisfies the 5 conditions, but none of the ones we mentioned above. So it's not in Bukhari, it's not in Muslim, it's not in both of them, it's not in the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim together. It's not only in the conditions of Bukhari and not only in the conditions of Muslim. But it is sahih. Again, this is just for you to understand the levels. So the highest level is what? Something Bukhari and Muslim, both of them mentioned in their books. The lowest is what? Sahih, but never of anything that we mentioned above. Which books can you find a hadith that is sahih in? Besides Bukhari and Muslim? Huh? Huh?
Ibn Khuzaymah.
Ibn Khuzaymah. Sahih Ibn Khuzaymah, good. Huh? And then his student, Al-Muqta, is not specifically, right? So we're talking about books that specifically mention a hadith sahihah. First of all, who's the first one to write a book in Sahih? Who only, he said, you know what, all my book is going to be only hadith Sahih. Who's the first one to do that? No, Malik has weak hadith. No. He never, according to him, he never said, I'm going to have Sahih. It's not called Sahih, it's Muwatta.
Sayyid Bukhari.
Bukhari. أول من صنف في الكتب محمد يعني محمد أول من صنف في الكتب محمد خص بالترجيح نعم عراقي says, right? Is the first one who brings it is Bukhari وخص بالترجيح. He's the one who specified Sahih. So the first one to say, I'm going to author a book containing only a hadith Sahih is Bukhari. Nobody ever did it before him. Yes, does this mean people never had a hadith Sahih in front of them? No. Imam Malik in his Muwatta has a hadith Sahih, and other scholars had a hadith Sahih in their books. But he's the only one to what? Independently author a book only on a hadith Sahih. Then came other scholars like Imam Muslim, his student, also Imam Ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih. Imam Ibn Khuzaymah has a kitab called Sahih Ibn Khuzaymah. He has a hadith Sahihah in it. And he brings a hadith in it, but then he's also mutasahil in his Sahih. Meaning he brings you a hadith that is Sahih, but he makes the condition of Sahih lenient in order to bring you more hadith. And some scholars criticize it for him. And he also brings some ahadith that he should have not put in there because they are really weak ahadith. Then came his student as well. Who is the student of Ibn Khuzaymah? Ibn Hibban al-Busti. Ibn Hibban also has a kitab called Sahih Ibn Hibban. He also has only Sahih according to his ijtihad. But even then, he made the conditions of Sahih very lenient in order to add more into there. And they say, أوهم كثيرا. There's a lot of mistakes he made. Also, Al-Mustadrak of Al-Hakim. Al-Hakim has a kitab called Al-Mustadrak. All of it is hadith sahih according to what he believed to be sahih. Al-Mustadrak, what's the concept of it again? Yes, so Imam Hakim al-Naysaburi, he came to Bukhari and Muslim, and he says there is books, a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim that satisfy the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim, but they're not found in Bukhari and Muslim. And here they are. Bukhari and Muslim missed out on them, but they satisfied the conditions of Bukhari and Muslim. And he wrote a kitab called Mustadrak and Ala Sahihain. Some scholars, a lot of scholars criticize it for him. He made a lot of mistakes, and he put a lot of ahadith there that not deserving to be there. Some of the scholars said we wish he never authored that book, Mustadrak. There's so many mistakes in it. Okay? Ala kullin, these are places where you find ahadith that are sahihah in it. Sahihah in it. So the Shaykh, he says, وَتَفَاوَتْ رُتَبُهُ بِتَفَاوَتِ هَذِهِ الْأَوْصَافِ. So the stronger these conditions are satisfied, the more sahih it is. From here, Bukhari is first, then Muslim, and then anything that satisfies their conditions. Now, next one.
أحسن الله إليك. فإن خف الضبط فالحسن لذاته وبكثرة طرقه يصحح.
Then he says there's one difference between Sahih and Hasan. One difference. He says فإن خف الضبط. In Sahih, how is the memorization? We said creme de la creme, 10 out of 10. But here it can be 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, no problem. And it would be considered what? Hadith Hasan, fair. So he says فإن خف الضبط فالحسن لذاته. It's حسن لذاته. وبكثرة طرقه يصحح. And if there's many chains, it becomes صحيح. Here in Sahih, write لغيره. So if we have a hadith, we have a sanad which is Hasan. Hasan is satisfying how many conditions? 5. What's the first one? Adala. Number 2? Which dabt? Khafif al-dabt. Average memorization. Then ittisal. No shudud, no illah. This is called Hasanun lidatihi. If you have a hadith that is Hasanun lidatihi, another sanad, another chain of the same hadith, Hasanun lidatihi, another chain of the same hadith, Hasanun lidatihi, another one Hasanun lidatihi, this chain automatically gets upgraded to Sahih. But Sahihun lighayri, it's Sahih for other than it. Just like a hadith that is da'if, with weakness that is slightly weak, not very weak, slightly weak hadith, another slightly weak chain of the same hadith, another slightly weak chain of the same hadith, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them, they get upgraded to what? Hasanun lighayrihi. Does that make sense? So if you have many hadith that are weak, little bit weak, but you have 10 asanid, what do they get upgraded to? Hasanun lighayrihi. If you have 10 ahadith that are hasanun lidatihi, they get upgraded to what? Sahihun lighayrihi. Hasanun, is there anything called da'ifun lighayrihi? And da'ifun lidatihi? No, there's nothing. Okay?
How many?
Chains, there's no limit. At minimum 1 for you to strengthen it. Minimum 1 additional one to strengthen it. But then it depends on the sanad that you bring like it? How close are the narrators and things like that? And the conditions that chain comes with itself. That chain comes with itself. So an example of a hadith that is sahih. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. The sanad is what? Bukhari from who? Without looking. Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr. Then Sufyan ibn Uyayna. Why is it not Sufyan ibn al-Thawri? Huh? How do you know he's in Mecca? Yes, he's in Mecca. Uyayna is in Mecca and Thawri is in Kufa, right? But why can it? But Bukhari took from both, right? And if you open Sahih al-Bukhari, he says عن سفيان أو قال سفيان. He doesn't say Thawri or Uyayna. Ahsan. Humaydi is where? He is the teachers from Mecca. Ahsan. Humaydi Abdullah ibn Zubayr is his teachers in Mecca. And he'll give you a faida. Give you a faida. Benefit, wallahi, gem from Bukhari. The first hadith in Bukhari is the one I mentioned. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Did Bukhari ever have a muqaddimah? No, there's no muqaddimah of Imam Bukhari, right? No introduction. Right away, Kitabu, what's the first book of Bukhari? Kitabu Badi' al-Wahi, the revelation being revealed. Now, إنما الأعمال بالنيات, Imam Bukhari mentions in his Sahih more than one time. How many times? No. A bit more. 8 times, I believe, or 9 times, I can't remember. But more than once. Imam al-Bukhari specifically chose in this place to bring that specific teacher of his. From all of the other teachers he heard the hadith. In the other places you might find a different teacher. This place, it is from Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Why? Well, number one, Imam al-Bukhari's teacher Al-Humaydi was a teacher from Mecca. The wahi came down where? In Mecca. He wanted to bring the title and the chapter heading with the teacher, the same teacher. Because he could have brought the chapter heading of Badi' al-Wahi, but brought you a teacher that he heard the hadith from in Iraq. But it's just more nicer if the teacher is also from Mecca, where the Wahi came down. Also, when he brings you the teacher Al-Humaydi Abdullah ibn Zubayr, what's the name of the teacher? No, the name of the teacher is Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Al-Humaydi is what? It's like Al-Bukhari, it's a nisbah. When I say Imam Bukhari's name, how do I say it? Muhammad ibn Ismail Al-Bukhari. Al-Bukhari is coming where? At the ending of it, right? Why did he choose to bring Al-Humaydi at the beginning? Yeah, because there's no hamdalah. He says hamdalah. Al-Humaydi is like he's praising Allah. It's his muqaddimah, right? This is the first hadith. So instead of saying Inna alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu, he says what? حدثنا الحميدي عبد الله بن زبير. Al-Humaydi, there's praise of Allah there. صح? Benefit, right? Bukhari sat down and thought about his book. Rahimahullah ta'ala. So coming back to the topic. So that is a hadith that is Sahih. Does everybody have the picture that I sent in the group? Now, write this as an extra benefit. The word thiqa equals to adala plus dabt. The word thiqa means a person has adala plus dabt. Thiqa, if you see this guy, this person is a thiqa, means he has two things automatically. Adala, reliability, and dabt, memorization. So there's a few speech of the scholars of hadith. I just want to break it down and try to make you understand, make it a bit more practical. So, do you want to read, Akhi? So if you read the first one for us.
أحسن الله إليك. قال علي بن المديني في إبراهيم بن أبي
عبلة.
أحسن الله إليك. في إبراهيم بن أبي عبلة كان أحد الثقات.
So Ali ibn Madini, he comments on this first narrator and he says, and the narrator's name is Ibrahim ibn Abi Abla. He says, كان أحد الثقات. He is a thiqa. Right away, when we see Ali ibn Madini commenting and saying he's a thiqa, which of the 5 conditions of a hadith sahih do we say is satisfied in him? The first 2. He has adala and dabt. Okay, next one.
أحسن الله إليك. قال الإمام أحمد ما تحت أديم السماء أحفظ لأخبار رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أبي مسعود أحمد بن الفرات.
So he said there is nobody, Imam Ahmad says, that is under the sky who has better memorization of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Abi Mas'ud, not Ibn Mas'ud, Abi Mas'ud. What is he praising him for? Dhabt. No adala. So it's only dhabt. So right away we know Imam Ahmad is saying take for his dhabt, memorization, not adala. We can't say he's a thiqa, but he is dhabit. No.
أحسن الله إليك. قال الإمام أحمد في أبي محمد عبد العزيز بن محمد بن عبيد كان معروفا بالطلب وإذا حدث من كتابه فهو صحيح وإذا حدث من كتاب الناس وهم وكان يقرأ من كتبهم فيخطأ.
So he says Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala spoke about Abi Muhammad ibn al-Aziz ibn Muhammad ibn Ubayd. He says كان معروفا بالطلب. He was a person who used to seek knowledge. وإذا حدث من كتابه فهو صحيح. Anything this man he narrated from his book, it is authentic. وإذا حدث من كتب الناس, and if he read from the books of others, sometimes he may come, he forgets his book at home. He says, Akhi, bring you your book and I'll read from your book. If he read from the books of others, what did he say? وهم, he made mistakes, he got deluded. وكان يقرأ من كتابهم فيخطئ, and he used to read from the books of others and make mistakes. So what do we say? Number one, which kind of memory did this narrator have? Sudur or sutur? Sutur, the books. Kitaba. Hifdul kitaba. Is it good or is it bad? Yeah, there's specific. So we say before or when he reads from his own book, he is good. If he reads from the books of others, he's bad. That makes sense? No.
Because if you read someone else's book, you wouldn't know if it was a mistake.
Allah A'lam. Or maybe the handwriting, but could be many things. No. Follow.
أحسن الله إليك. قال ابن حبان في أبي اليغضان عثمان بن عمير اختلط حتى كان لا يدري ما يقول لا يجوز الاحتجاج به.
So Ibn Hibban, he speaks of a man called Abi Yaqatan, and he says اختلط حتى كان لا يدري ما يقول. He got confused with his memorization until he didn't know what he was saying. لا يجوز الاحتجاج به. He's not allowed to use him as a proof. What is his memorization like? Good, khafif, tam al-dabt. He's very, very weak. Okay, very, very weak, and he is what the scholars call mukhtalit. He is confused, so he is rejected. And if this narrator was in the chain, what would he consider the chain? Da'if, right away da'if, because it's not Hasan or Sahih. Now,
Because this is Haban saying this, because he was very lenient.
yeah, so we wouldn't just take him, but just based on that statement like that. But then we'll bring the speech of other ulama of hadith as well. And we don't base our judgment based on one.
You know what I'm saying? Because he was known to be quite easy with his grades. So the
Yeah.
fact that he's criticizing someone,
It holds weight, yeah. But we wouldn't just look at that. Yeah, we would look at other scholars of hadith and what they also have to say about Abi Yaqdan. Now, an example of a hadith that is Hasan. Who knows? Sahih is very easy, right? Hasan. Ahsan. Now, so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواق عند كل صلاة. If I were not to make my matters difficult for the people, I would command them with the miswak at every salah. This hadith is narrated by Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqama from Abi Salama ibn Abd Rahman from Abi Hurairah. Now in the hadith is who? Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqama. He is the Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqama. He says, or Ibn Salah comments on this man. He says, هو من المشهورين بالصدق والصيانة. He is known by honesty and having worked in hadith. لكنه لم يكن من أهل الإتقان. He's not somebody who is precise in his memory. حتى ضعفه بعضهم. Some of them weakened him. من جهة, from one angle. Or من جهة سوء حفظه, from the angle of his weak memory. ووثقه بعضهم. And some of them, they strengthened him لصدقه, because of his honesty. فحديثه من هذه الجهة حسن. So his hadith from this angle is Hasan. So just because of this one man in the chain, what's his name again? Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqama, and Ibn Salah called him what? Hasan al-Hadith. The hadith becomes Hasan. Okay? Because of that one man.
Strengthens him because of his sick.
So,
How does that?
because he has diyana, so he has diyana, but he doesn't have dhabt. So he has adala, but he has less dhabt.
Oh, so he's not raising his doctor based on his sick.
No. He just says he has adala, but his sadq is low. Yeah. So this is a hadith that is Hasan because of that one man in the chain. That is Hasan. Another hadith is also the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, أكثر من شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله قبل أن يحال بينكم وبينها. Increase in saying La ilaha illallah until you are unable to say it one day because of death. This hadith, there's a man in it called Imam Ibn Ismail. Imam Ibn Ismail, he is khafif al-dabt. His memorization is average. And I'll give you the narrators of the speech of some of the ulama. Imam al-Dhahabi says, Salih al-Hadith. He didn't say thiqa. What did he call it? Salih. That means he's fair. He's average. Abu Zur'at al-Iraqi, the son of Zayd ibn al-Iraqi, he also says a statement from Imam Ahmad, and he says, Salih al-Hadith. And Imam al-Nasai, he says, La ba'sa bihi. There's no problem with him. Ibn Hajar says, Suduqun wa rubbama akhta. Ibn Hajar says he's honest, but maybe he made a mistake. So this is what brings him to the level of Hasan. Brings him to the level of Hasan. So that's an example of a hadith that is Hasan. Now, this point of فَإِنْ خَفَّ الضَّبْطِ, are we saying the only difference between Sahih and Hasan is one condition? Or can there other conditions also affect? Yeah, why not? Why do we say just because the memorization is the only thing that differs? If the adala is different, yeah, we will still consider it to be different as well. So it's, again, you look at it closely and we say, to be precise with the wordings, it's not just that one condition that needs to be different. Any of the 5 conditions, if it's not satisfied the way that it should be for Sahih, it becomes Hasan. It becomes Hasan. You can. So if the chain is not a'immat al-hufaz, it's just by a chain and it's connected, but it's connected and there's a khilaf regarding the ittisal, but the rajih is muttasil, then you can say, yeah, it's connected at the end, but then there was a khilaf, but we say it's connected, it's not like something that is musalsal bil hufaz.
That's khilaf in the chain, that's why it never reaches Sahih, but it's trying to reach.
Yeah, I'm just giving an example, but yeah, that can be a possibility. That ittisal can be weaker than a ittisal in a hadith that is sahih. Yeah. Da'if. Straight da'if. Any of the 5 conditions, one of them are not found, da'if right away. He can be a good memorizer and perfect chain, but if his adala is gone, khalas, da'if right away. So we don't say you have to weaken all 5 in order to be da'if. Any one of it is weak, khalas, da'if. Now, we took the example of a hadith that is Hasan, right? Now, then we have an example of a hadith that is Sahihun al-ghayrihi. Write it down. You don't need to write it down because we've mentioned it before. The hadith of Hasan. Which is the hadith that is Hasan that we took the first one? Miswak, right? لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك. What did we say it is? Hasan. Now this hadith has Muhammad ibn Amr ibn Alqama, and that's the one that we said because of him it's Hasan. So Imam al-Tirmidhi in his Jami' he says قال صحيح. Imam al-Tirmidhi grades this hadith to be صحيح لأنه قد روي من غير وجه عن أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So even though that one sanad is what? Hasan, but because this one has different asanid other than Abi Hurairah brings it, it becomes what? Sahihun لغيره. And the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Zakatul Janini, Zakatul hadith in Tirmidhi and Abu Dawud. It's da'if. But because we have so many chains, it becomes Hasanun لغيره. Hasanun لغيره. And the scholars of the fuqaha, they use that hadith in the books of fiqh, especially in Hanabala, they use it. So those are examples of Hasanun لذاته, Hasanun لغيره. One last discussion, inshallah, and then we'll stop today's lesson.
أحسن الله إليك. فإن جمع فللتردد في النقال فإن جمع فللتردد في الناقل حيث التفرد، وإلا فباعتبار إسنادين.
So he says فإن جمع فللتردد. We understand Sahih, alhamdulillah. We understand Da'if, alhamdulillah. We understand Hasan لغيره, Hasan لذاته, Sahih لغيره, Sahih لذاته. We understand, right? We gave examples, places. Where can you find books or hadith that are Hasan? مستدرك في الحاكم? No, that's Sahih. Which book? You can find it in any book of Ibn al-Qayyim, but like a book of hadith. Huh? That's da'if. موضوعات, that's da'if. جامع الترمذي, Sunan Abi Dawud, Sunan al-Nasai, Sunan Ibn Majah, they have a hadith that are Hasan. A lot of hadith that are Hasan. Okay. So the Shaykh, he brings you the last point. He says, فَإِن جُمِعَا, if they're brought together. Write in brackets, جُمِعَا means what? Sahih and Hasan. How do we know? Because that's what he just spoke about. We spoke about Sahih and Hasan. He says, فَإِن جُمِعَا, if they're brought together. So if somebody says, هَذَا حَدِيثٌ حَسَنٌ صَحِيح, they say Hasan and Sahih at the same time. Is that possible? Huh? Can you say a square circle? Huh? Yeah. So he says here, فَلِتَرَدُّد. It is لِلتَرَدُّد, doubting. فِي النَّاقِلِ حَيْثُ التَّفَرُّد. If it's only a singular chain and a person says Hasan Sahih, it's لِلتَرَدُّد. It's like him saying Hasan or Sahih. I don't know. It's Hasan or Sahih, I don't know. That's how he's saying it. If it's only one chain in front of us. So if there's tafarrud, meaning it's only one chain, and he says Hasan Sahih, what do we understand? The Shaykh himself is not sure. وَإِلَّا, if not, if there's more than one chain, there's two chains for the hadith, and the Shaykh says Hasan Sahih, what do we say? One chain is Hasan and the other chain is Sahih of the same hadith. Okay? وَإِلَّا فِي بِاعْتِبَارِ إِسْنَادَيْنِ. If there's two asanid, then each one is Hasan and one is Sahih. Now this is the explanation of Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala. It's not an adequate explanation. And who's the first, or who's the one who uses this term a lot? Hasan or Sahih? Imam al-Tirmidhi. And they say he's the first one to use it. It's ajib. How can you say this person has A star and B at the same time? Or A star and A at the same time? Is it either A star or A? It doesn't make sense. Is it Hasan or Sahih? Which one is it? Is it Khafif al-Dabt or Tam al-Dabt? So here, scholars, they differed a lot. Now, I personally don't think the explanation of Ibn Hajar is sufficient. There is another explanation given by Ibn Daqiq al-Eid. And he really tried to do what is known as Daf'u al-i'tirad. He tried to repel the doubt and bring a common term. And he says, ذكر مرتبة النازل لا ينفي المرتبة العالية. It's like him saying, me saying Hasan and Sahih does not negate the lower position. If I come and let's say I'm a teacher and I grade somebody's class homework and I say very good, comma, excellent. What have I graded him to be? Yeah, I meant excellent. But good is already a part of excellent. For you to reach excellent, you need to what? Satisfy good and then reach excellent. So for example, I say, well done. Good. What do I mean? Well done. But good is what? The lower one, right? Excellent, akhi. And then I say good. So good comes first, and then excellent comes, right? So 80% comes first, then 90%. If I give you 90%, 80% is a part of it. So this is the way that Ibn Daqiq al-Eid tried to reconcile it. Just he tried to please both parties. And then came Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala. His opinion is the best. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, and we'll end here inshallah. Ibn Rajab has a kitab where he explained the whole of Tirmidhi. And then he explained Imam al-Tirmidhi at the end of his book, Jami' al-Tirmidhi has a book called Al-Ilal. And it's called Al-Ilal al-Saghir. And he has another kitab called Al-Ilal al-Kabir, where he just speaks about the defects and the narrators, very powerful section of his book. Qaddar Allah, Ibn Rajab explained the whole of Tirmidhi and the Ilal al-Saghir. We don't have the whole explanation of Tirmidhi, but we have the amazing explanation of Ilal al-Saghir. That small section in it, he tells you what he means by Hasan al-Sahih at-Tirmidhi. And I want you to do this as homework and bring it back to me next week. When Ibn Rajab, and what does Ibn Rajab say Hasan al-Sahih means? Because why are we going to take Ibn Rajab's opinion? Ibn Rajab has explained the whole of Tirmidhi, beginning to end. So if he gives you a definition of Hasan al-Sahih, it's based on what? What he practically saw in the book Jami' al-Tirmidhi. So his is the best one, and inshallah, that's homework for you guys. We'll stop here for now, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum. Does anybody have any quick questions? Yes. No, there's another one. I can find it for you, inshallah. You have the app software, no? I'll find it. I don't think it's a Razi, no. Can be wrong, but I don't think so.
So in the definition, is basically saying that it's a hadith
He's
Hasan.
saying it's Sahih, basically.
It's Hasan.
Yeah, because for it to be considered Sahih, it's already satisfied Hasan. So he's saying what Imam al-Tirmidhi means is it's Sahih.
What do you say?
He's just saying, like, I say good, excellent, that's all he means. But he meant Sahih, that's what he means. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here for now. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفره وأتوب إليه والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.